The Stafford Voice.
Profiles in history. Being against a revolt about unfair taxation led him to being dragged through the street in what some claim was the first battle of the American Revolution. William Hooper was born on June 28, 1742 in Boston, Massachusetts. At the age of 16, he attended Harvard University, later graduating with honors in 1760. His career path was to follow his father into Episcopal priesthood, but that didn't happen. Instead, he studied law under James Otis until 1764. He completed his bar exam and left Boston partly due to too many lawyers in the surrounding area. He would eventually end up in Wilmington, North Carolina, where he would start his legal and political rise. On August 16, 1767, Hooper married Anne Clark. In 1768, they had their first son, William. 2 years later, they would welcome their daughter, Elizabeth, followed by their second son, Thomas, in 1772. His career got a boost in 1769 when he was appointed as Deputy Attorney of the Salisbury District, and again a year later when he would be appointed Deputy Attorney General of North Carolina. Initially, Hooper supported the British colonial government of North Carolina. As Deputy Attorney General, he worked with Governor William Tryon to suppress the Regulators, which was a rebellious group who, during the War of the Regulation, took up arms against colonial officials. There were a handful of reasons the Regulators were upset: a recent influx of new settlers, an economic depression, and yes, even a little corruption and class warfare. But probably the thing that stung the most: taxes. Now, leading up to the War of the Regulation, one of the accomplishments, if you will, was the breaking up of the provincial court. And it was during this riot that William Hooper was dragged through the streets. He then advised Governor Tryon to use as much force as was needed to stop the rebels, which led to the Battle of Alamance in 1771, where the Regulators' resistance crumbled rather quickly. After the Regulator uprising, William began parting ways politically. Now, on April 26, that is, 1774, he wrote to a friend, James Iredell, saying, quote, "The colonies are striding fast to independence, and ere long will build an empire upon the ruins of Great Britain, will adopt its constitution, purged of its impurities, and, from an experience of defects, will guard against those evils which have wasted its vigor." It was his time in the Continental Congress, with the aid of his fellow delegate Joseph Hughes, that he would become a supporter of the American Revolution and independence. While there, Adams identified Hooper as one of the better orators. During his time in Congress, he was appointed to numerous committees, including the Committee of Correspondence. However, much of his time was split between Congress and work in North Carolina, as he was assisting in forming a new government. In 1775, Hooper wrote to people in Jamaica to explain the political situation and complained that the British ignored petitions for justice and saw them as signs of rebellion. He wrote, quote, "It has plunged us in all the horrors and calamities of civil war. It has caused the treasure and blood of Britons, formerly shed and expended for far other ends, to be spilt and wasted in the execrable design of spreading slavery over British America. It will not, however, accomplish its aim. In the worst of contingencies, a choice will still be left, which it never can prevent us from making. That choice was independence. Because of his ongoing work in North Carolina, Hooper arrived in Philadelphia in '76 just a little too late, having missed the vote for the Declaration of Independence on July 4th. However, he did sign his name to the document in August. In 1777, William had to return home to help his family because when the British invaded North Carolina, they burned his home in Wilmington. He had to rely on the charity of friends as he avoided capture and was separated from his wife and children. And by the time the war was over, he had lost everything but his family. After the Revolution, Hooper returned to his career in law, never regaining his place of prominence. In 1787 and '88, he campaigned heavily for North Carolina to ratify the new United States Constitution. But by this time, he had become pretty ill, having previously contracting malaria years earlier. The day before his daughter's planned wedding on October 14th, 1790, he passed away in Hillsborough, North Carolina. And despite being only 48 years old, he left a legacy of integrity and sacrifice. And that is this week's Profiles in History.